Hey everyone, I think this is the first video I've done that's not going to have any gameplay in it because I'm going to be talking about virtual reality and some equipment. And if you haven't done virtual reality in sim racing, I think you're really missing out on something. Besides the 3D stereoscopic view that you get, and you also get this ability to move your head around, look at the apexes, look at your mirrors. You are literally inside the car. So immersion-wise, it's something very special, very interesting. Not everyone can handle it stomach-wise. Some people get vertigo. Some people get motion sickness. So if you're going to try it out, definitely make sure you have a good return policy, or you can try it out at a friend's house. I started out on the PlayStation VR, on the PlayStation 4 Pro, and then I moved to PC, and I brought the PSVR with me. And using the IVRY driver on Steam, which is a driver that allows the PSVR to work on PC, I played for a few months in VR using the PSVR. So this is your PSVR equipment here. And then I upgraded to the Oculus Rift S. These are two pretty different VR headsets, and I just wanted to explain to you what the upgrade was like and why the PSVR might be a good entry-level set for anyone that's got one laying around that might want to move over to playing VR on PC. So I'll start out with the specs. The PSVR, this has a 5.7-inch OLED screen with a total resolution of 1080 by 960. So it's kind of similar to full HDR, but that translates to 540 by 960 in each eye. So this is not a very high resolution headset. And anyone who's tried it on the PlayStation will realize that. You get this blurry look, especially in the horizon. It's perfectly playable, but it's pretty much like going from PlayStation 4 back to like what a PlayStation 2.5 would be, because the PlayStation just doesn't have enough processing power to really do VR really well. But it is very enjoyable and it's very immersive. So if you can handle the graphics downgrade, the PSVR is just fun, and if you've tried it, you know what I'm talking about with the blurry effect. Now, this runs at 120 hertz, although the Sony official policy is to have no game less than 90, so just about everything you play is going to be on 90 hertz. So that's roughly 30 over what your typical 60 frames per second is in more of the serious racing games, right? And the field of view is 100 degrees, which means that out the side of your eyes, you don't have a whole lot of peripheral vision. Now, the Rift S, on the other hand, this is a 2560 by 1440 LCD screen. So LCD means you don't have the colors popping as much, and the blacks are a little bit grayer than they are on OLED screen. It's also a single screen. Now, this only runs at 80 hertz, which is 10 hertz below the original Rift. And I'll talk in a couple of minutes about the difference in performance between these two headsets. And this has a field of view of 115 degrees. Now, that was never confirmed by Oculus. No one really knows how much FOV this really has. FOV is really important with VR, especially when you're sitting in a car, because the wider it is, the more of your side mirrors you see out of your peripheral vision, and also be able to see a car that's next to you. The IPD is the distance there is between your eyes. Some headsets have a manual roller here that will physically widen or narrow the position of the lenses. Neither of these have that. It's done through software and basically redirects the light to adjust to your IPD. So depending on how much space you have between your eyes, some people who have a lot of space between their eyes can find these kinds of digital IPD headsets a little bit lacking, because only the ones that have the manual adjustment are able to get a really perfect centering of the lenses on both of your eyes. Now, what games have I played with these? Well, I started out on PS4 Pro, like I said before. I played GT Sport, which unfortunately you're actually not allowed to do any online races or real races in VR. It's a limited mode, limited to hot lapping or just against one AI car. Dirt Rally 1, I actually got the PSVR when Dirt Rally 2.0 was already out, and the VR got me back to playing a lot of Dirt Rally just because it's so much better in VR. Drive Club VR, that's a game I played a lot. I'm not a big fan of Drive Club, but just the fact that they would allow me to race against 7 other human beings online in VR, it made it really enjoyable, so enjoyable that I actually took it up to the Platinum Trophy. And then that's pretty much it, what you have on PlayStation with racing games. You're very, very limited. So obviously I've played stuff like Until Dawn, Resident Evil 7, No Man's Sky. But when I got to PC, I had a whole bunch of new opportunities to play a whole bunch of new racing games. So what I've been playing mostly is Richard Burns Rally and Assetto Corsa Competizione. I've also done Dirt Rally 2.0. I play some Automobilista 2 once in a while. And then, some of the odd stuff like Elite Dangerous, Beat Saber, and Google Earth, which is pretty cool in VR too. So I don't have any direct comparisons between a PlayStation game and a PC game to make. But since I did use the PSVR on PC before switching over to the Rift S, I can make some direct comparisons between the two headsets. So first of all, let's talk about the limitations of IVRY, the driver that makes this work on the PC. This headset does not have any internal tracking. That's why on the PlayStation you need the PlayStation camera, and then you have your Move controllers that go in your hands. The tracking is done through the camera. Now, on PC, the PS4 camera does not work, so you have no tracking. So if you're only playing racing games, that's fine. But you could forget about playing any other game like No Man's Sky with this, unless you want. There are some workarounds with a couple PS3 cameras, for example. There's another workaround with some equipment, I believe it's called Nolo, where you can get the tracking working with this. So I would only suggest using the PSVR on PC if you're going to be limiting yourself to sim racing. So another problem that this has is, since the tracking doesn't work, you are actually kind of fixed in the seat of your car. You can move your head around, but you can't go like this and look around in the car. Your head is planted here, and you can only look left, right, up, and down. 3D stereoscopic effect still works fine, and since there's no tracking, the vision often drifts off to one direction. So when you're about half a lap through Spa, you're going to find that your vision is kind of like this, looking over that way. So you need to assign a button to recenter your view. You need to do it 2 to 3 times a lap maybe. And if you're playing a rally game, maybe about every 2 kilometers, you're going to have to recenter the view because it drifts off because there's no tracking. It's a small annoyance, minor annoyance, but something that's easily solved if you have a button on your wheel to just recenter that. Obviously, on the Rift S, that doesn't happen at all because this has internal sensors. It has no external sensors. It's all guided by light. So this, you don't need any tracking stations. You don't need any cameras or anything else to make the Rift S work. Now, as far as performance is concerned, now that we've seen the specs and the limitations of everything, the first thing you're going to notice when you go from PSVR to Rift S is the massive jump in resolution. It's enormous. The blurry horizon is gone. The dashboards look so crisp. Everything inside the car, the mirrors, the difference is really mind-boggling. With the PSVR, you can barely even read text in the menus, which is a huge problem. With the Rift S, it's all crystal clear. The OLED screens on this one, the PSVR, are definitely better with colors and better with the blacks. I know a lot of people complain, for example, using Elite Dangerous, which is an outer space game, saying that it really shows the flaws of the Rift S LCD panel. I honestly didn't see a huge difference between the two. Yes, the blacks are not as deep, but it looks just fine, at least for my tastes. Another complaint that people have about the Rift S is that it has no built-in headphones. There are speakers here that let the sound out right over your ear. That's not a problem for me because I prefer to be able to hear a little bit what's going on in the room. For other people, it's a deal breaker. But with both of these headsets, you can plug external headphones into them as well. They have jacks integrated into them. And the PSVR has these integrated earbuds. So, as far as resolution is concerned, the Rift S is a massive jump up from the PSVR, and I highly suggest if you dabble in VR and you like it and you want to make the plunge, if you can go with something like a Rift S, then do it because the visuals are so much better than the PSVR that it's really hard to describe. Now, as far as smoothness is concerned, the PSVR, through the IVR-Y driver, it works off Steam VR. And what I found I had to do with the PSVR is I had to force motion smoothing on. Motion smoothing basically drops your refresh rate by half. So instead of 90 frames per second, you're at 45 frames per second. And the motion smoothing fills in the part in the middle and gives you the sensation of a smooth image. And why did I have to do that? Because if I didn't have that forced on, when Steam VR would detect that the frame rate was dropping, the transition between 90 hertz and 45 hertz was very jarring. So I just decided to force it on all the time, and it works pretty well. It's not that bad at all, but it is noticeable. Now with the Rift S, Oculus, I think, has some of the best VR software that's out there, and it does work with most Steam games. There are a couple of games like Richard Burns Rally where you're going to have to play in Steam VR compatibility mode, but even that works better than the PSVR. And this being 10 hertz less than the PSVR, it is noticeable. Obviously, the best thing you can do with VR is have the highest refresh rate as possible to avoid motion sickness. So if you're sensitive to that kind of things, then maybe a higher end headset would be better for you. But it is noticeable. But definitely not annoying, at least for me. I can totally handle it. One nice thing about the Oculus software, I was able to take the motion smoothing off, so I don't force it on. And the transition between motion smoothing and normal frame rate is practically, it's negligible. You can barely even tell it's happening. Now, one thing I noticed about the Rift S, even though this supposedly has a 115 degree field of view, whereas the PSVR has 100, I can honestly tell you that I feel like my peripheral vision is a little bit more restricted with the Rift S than it is with the PSVR. Now, there are some higher end headsets like the Valve Index, which I think probably is the best bang for your buck out there right now. And the Pimax, which have more than 180 degrees of FOV, I believe. Those are really wide FOV headsets. That is where just out of the corner of your eye without turning your head, you can see your side mirrors, you can see who's next to you. You can't do that with the Rift S. You do actually have to turn your head a little bit to look in your mirrors. So that is a small annoyance, but without having to get a $2,000 or $3,000 computer and an $800 headset, I think with my $1,000 computer and my $300 headset in Black Friday, I'm happy with the trade-off. Of course, all of us would like to have the best equipment out there, but you just can't do it all the time. And as far as comfort is concerned, this is where the PSVR really wins. The PSVR has this nice faux leather padding here in the front and the back, and the way it actually fits on the head is a lot more comfortable. It rests more comfortable on the head, and here in the visor, this is some nice high quality soft rubber that keeps the light from coming in. So the PSVR overall, I think, is a much higher quality headset than the Rift S as far as design and build quality is concerned. You can see here on the Rift S that this is just some cheap foam, not very high quality at all. Here we have some padding, and here in the back there's some padding. That's better quality. But the thing is, when you are wearing the Rift S for long periods of time, like I do, for example, in my Assetto Corsa Competizione leagues, which requires me to be at my rig for 2 hours with this thing on without taking it off, it does get a little bit uncomfortable. That's something I never experienced with the PSVR. So there you go. That's pretty much the wrap up of what it's like if upgrading from the PSVR to the Rift S. There are lots of other possibilities out there. I think the Rift S is really good bang for your buck, especially if you don't have a high-end computer. If you have the specs to do it, another good headset to get into is the Valve Index, which is much more expensive and does have the external tracking stations, which can be a real annoyance for some people. Me, since I stick exclusively to sim racing, the Rift S, with all of its limitations, for the price point, is just fine with me. And I'll just say once again, jumping from the PSVR to the Rift S is pretty much like going from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 4. It's really, really an incredible upgrade. But like I said, why did I want to make this video? I wanted to make this video for those of you who are sitting, maybe considering upgrading to a PC, and you got one of these things laying around in your house. Well, you can sim race on the PC with your PSVR that you already have. And then if you end up liking it and want to go somewhere else with it, well, then you've got other options like the Rift S or the other ones I mentioned. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. See you later.